Hello, this is Brett from SurvivalComms, and today on the bench we have a Motorola MX350 portable radio. Now this particular variant is an MX350, it's of the MX300 series line, and it's the MX300S, which is the first, if I remember correctly, synthesized high-tier portable radio in Motorola's product line. It's a product of the 1980s. When you open up one of these and look inside of it, it's a real radio. They made these in VHF, UHF, and 800 megahertz. This particular model here is just a 4-channel variant, and it has a little small squelch potentiometer. It's got a switch here. You get your clear switch, PL, no PL, and then secure switch. It does have a desk module in it, and you have your on-off control right here. On this side here, you can see our push-to-talk switch here has got some damage, but you can see your accessory connector right here, and then you have an RF connector that attaches here, and then your threaded screw for your speaker microphone. These were fantastic radios for the time, and they're still solid performers today. But the problem is the battery packs pretty much suck, and then most of your legacy keyloaders also have utilized this series of battery. This battery pack that's on it is a aftermarket battery pack. The OEM packs have long since been discontinued, and just spins off as such. You can see the size of it, and for the size and the weight, and this only being a 1500 milliamp hour capacity, is due to the limitations of the cells. It uses NiCad cells, and the problem is that all of the chargers that were built for these radios, they're not multi-chemistry drop-in chargers. So that being the case, you're pretty much limited to NiCad batteries when you purchase them. These batteries are dead. Today we're going to take one apart and end up reselling these with lithium-ion batteries. Well, first we need to open our pack up, and you can see right along here that we have a seam that allows us to remove this entire top. A lot of your aftermarket housings are all the same. The methods of attachment of this plate on the housing differ, and that's this particular manufacturer here, which is, it's good they didn't do that great of a job of sealing this thing up, because it makes it much easier for us to make a more useful battery pack out of this housing. Take our pack and go along this seam with a screwdriver and kind of try to give it just a little persuasion to get it to open up. And you can see it kind of opened up. And we'll work it on the other side too here and see if we have much luck. It looks like we have. There's other ways to do this. Some people like to freeze battery packs when they're trying to open them, in the hope that when they apply a little percussion action to it, that some of the seams will break, and then they can access the insides of the battery pack. But anyway, so you can see here that we've removed our cover, and it's in good repair, and you can see how they sealed these up. They just took some silicone and put some silicone action on there, which worked good for the service life of this battery pack. Okay, let's take a little tour of the battery pack here. There are 6 cells in here. The cells are 1.2 volts each, making for a sum of 7.2 volts. Once the battery is almost full, it starts to build up heat, and as this heat builds up, this thermally active component opens the charging circuit and only allows the battery to charge at a much reduced rate rather than a rapid rate. You can see that our cells are just hot glued together in this instant. So our cells here, we'll just go ahead and lift this out. We'll merely just cut those away. Get those out of our way. And take our cells and set that aside. You can see that we've got a layer of cardboard here that's like an insulation layer. And what we do is we try to remove this cardboard from our battery pack and access what is beneath. Here's the inside of our pack, and it doesn't get much more simple than this. The wiring inside this pack is far undersized for the current consumption demands of the radio itself, which would probably be on the order of 3 to 5 amps. And trying to carry that much current through these little tiny wires there, that's pathetic. So anyway, so right here we have our diode. Our diode essentially is a safety device, and it also prevents the flow of current in reverse. Our resistor is a current limiting resistor for the slow charge rate, and this terminal right here is connected to our thermally active component that detects the temperature of the battery pack itself. Here is our thermally active component from our battery pack. It's known as a thermistor. It's a thermally reactive resistor, meaning that right now at room temperature we're sitting at about 260 ohms of resistance. Now, as we apply a change in temperature to it, elevating temperature, you can see it essentially inhibits the flow of current across the device. And as the device cools, it's going to go ahead and start conducting again, which you can see it's starting to conduct again. And as the temperature drops, the less resistance is placed in the circuit. Now, for our conversion of this battery pack, we're not going to need any of these components, so we're going to go ahead and use a soldering iron and lift all these components out of here. Now we've removed all of our little parts here, and to take all your components and reuse your components. I mean, this stuff's all good for other projects. I mean, you don't want to have any kind of conductivity between these pins here. So we don't even need these terminals here anymore. You can lift them out if you desire to. Okay, we've removed all of our straps, and that's the ones that were on the bottom here for the charging side of it. And we've left the two inside that connect to our radio. So now what we've got is attachment points for the conductors or wires we're going to use to wire up our battery pack. The wire I'm going to use is just scavenged from a power cable kit. Now we'll just strip and tin our pack size conductors, and we're not going to go very far. We just need that much exposed. Now that we've stripped and tin our conductors, we'll go ahead and insert them. The positive side is going to be the longer tab that I've cut. So what I'll do is I'll make a 90 coming out of here. I'm going to lay it inside and make a nice solid attachment, and we'll do the same for our ground side. Now you can see we've made our connections for our new battery pack, and we'll go ahead and I'm going to insulate this with some fiberglass tape just for safety's sake. I've insulated the battery positive and negative conductors with fiberglass tape. Another way to do it would be to build a dam inside of here and then backfill and flood that area with epoxy, potting it in effectively. Here's going to be the heart of our new system, which is a 2-cell 18650 holder. These things are really inexpensive. I think this is like $2, and you can see we've got solder tabs on the base of it here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to series wire the positive and negative on one side of it, and then we're going to pull our power for the battery pack off of this side of it here. 18650 is a 3.7 volt cell, so both of those wired together is going to be 7.4 nominally. When they're fully charged, it's going to be around 8 volts. Those over voltages do not last very long. That surface charge disappears quite rapidly in service. First thing we're going to do is we're going to bend our tabs flat. So you just grab them with a small pair of nail nose and bend all 4 of them down like that. So now we've taken our strapping and punched a couple holes into it and fluxed it, and what we're going to do now is complete our connection. So now we've completed our series connection for our cells. Now you can see, now we've trimmed up our battery conductors because the way we want them to rest in here and attach to our pack is at the front, and you're essentially just going to twist it in on itself, kind of like a road bike handlebar, and that's going to tie to the positive side and this one to the negative side of our pack. And this allows us to do our soldering on the outside of the pack, which makes it so much easier to put together. Okay, we've made our connections here, and essentially this pack will rest down in here now. So before we put that in there, we don't want this thing to move around, which it's in there. It's in there pretty doggone tight right now. Okay, let's go ahead and put our pack together permanently. Get yourself some servo tape. Cut the length. Put one section here. Then the second section here. Once you get your red off, put your battery pack in. Get a nice tight fit now. And press it in the housing. And that servo tape's going to hold that in there just awesome. Take your battery pack. This side's negative. This side's positive. Let's check. And we're good to go there. Tie your pack off here. And now your cells aren't going to come loose. Take your pack, take your lid, place your lid on it, secure it with a Ranger band. Let's give our battery pack a test here. Sounds good.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Working good. So we've gone from a 14-ounce battery pack to a 4.5 ounce battery pack with twice the capacity. To charge it, I would just cut this wire tie, remove the cells, place them into a generic 18650 charger, which I can charge on 12 volts or 110, which the other charger was just a 110 charger. So I've gained a little flexibility there. When they're charged, pop the cells back in, put the wire tie back around it again. Yes, that's kind of inconvenient. This isn't a radio that you're going to use for some kind of a situation that's of a life safety nature. This is more of a novelty. So I think it's a big win.
Who loves you, baby? I hope this helps. This is Brett from SurvivalComms.